Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, my name is Chase Sr. How all of the latest major NFL news impacts the Philadelphia Eagles in a big way with training camp 6 days away. What we're discussing here on the show, Terry McLaurin contract latest. He is not happy with the Washington Commanders. Howie Roseman looks like a genius again. The Chiefs pay an offensive guard who the Eagles and Nolan Smith know very, very well from that Super Bowl 59 victory. And we'll also get to the latest on what's happening with Micah Parsons, his new looming deal, and the Dallas Cowboys. We begin with player number one. Loaded show coming your way. So glad that all of you are hanging out here with us. Terry McLaurin, just not happy with Washington. And according to a report, the Commanders wide receiver, going into the final year of his deal, wants about $30 million per season. The Commanders, as of right now, Adam Peters, general manager, Joshua Harris, the owner, have not budged. And McLaurin was very open and honest with his feelings on the matter. He said this to NBC Sports Washington: "I've been pretty frustrated. I'm not going to lie. Everything that has transpired up to this point has been disappointing and frustrating. I want to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I bought our first home here. So this has been somewhere where I've always wanted to be. Just to see how things have played out has been disappointing. Obviously, I understand that everything's a business, but at the same time, I want to put myself in a position where I'm valued. I feel appreciated and things like that. Unfortunately, that hasn't transpired the way I want it to. I'm just trying to take things day by day at the beginning of this process. I honestly just wanted for things to work out. I thought things would be more progressed than they have. So at this point, it's kind of up in the air." He also mentioned that with training camp beginning soon, preseason going to be here before we know it, McLaurin and the Commanders are entering crunch time. Now, how this impacts Philadelphia, first of all, Howie Roseman would never let a situation get to this point. He would have paid Terry McLaurin either way earlier in the offseason before the wide receiver market got reset again, hello Garrett Wilson, or he would have signed him last year to get ahead of all of this. And McLaurin is a player who has been a franchise icon for Washington. So much production, despite so much bad quarterback play, he's been able to get through it, putting up huge season after huge season, and that probably impacts how he feels about this, saying to himself, I've done all of this for Washington. I've gone through some losing seasons. Last year, I was the number one on a team that broke through. The number one option for Jaden Daniels. We made it to the NFC Championship game. I've been doing it year in, year out, and you still don't want to compensate me? Now, how this also impacts the Eagles, and let me also add that with the franchise icon like that, Howie would take care of that type of player. Now, as far as this Commanders-Eagles matchup, rivalry, McLaurin is wide receiver one for the biggest team that is the biggest threat in the NFC East for the Eagles, but also perhaps in the entire NFC for further NFC supremacy. It's a great weapon for Daniels last year, a big reason why Daniels solidified himself as a top 10 quarterback as a rookie. And in his career, McLaurin against Philadelphia, despite that bad quarterback play, put up really good production. 64 catches against the Eagles for 917 yards, 6 touchdowns, 14.3 yards per catch in 12 games. You translate that to a whole season, that is a monster campaign for McLaurin in his career if you translate that against the Eagles. And look at his career numbers here. When I said that he's been getting it done year in and year out, I wasn't lying to you. I never lie to the audience. He has been one of the most productive wide receivers in football the first 6 years of his career. 919 yards, 7 touchdowns in his rookie year on 93 targets, 58 catches. Remember when he burst onto the scene? Turned a lot of heads against the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field, against Carson Wentz early in the year. That was really the start of his stardom. And then every year after that, with the likes of Carson Wentz, Sam Howell, bad quarterbacks, he's gone over 1,000 yards 5 straight years. Year 2, 1,100, then over 1,000, nearly 1,200, over 1,000. And this past year, almost 1,100 yards, 82 catches on 117 targets, 13 touchdowns for that Commanders offense. And the Commanders wide receiver situation is an interesting one. One of the big takeaways from myself coming off that Commander surprise year last year. They needed a better, more legit number 2. They didn't really have that guy. Olamide Zaccheaus wasn't a number 2. Noah Brown, more of a wide receiver 3. So what the Commanders did this offseason was they traded for Deebo Samuel. They guaranteed him $17 million, something in that neighborhood, for the 2025 season. Clearly, that's an all-in move with how much they have spent in free agency as well. But if you're going to go all in, you ain't going all in with an unhappy Terry McLaurin or without signing him to a contract extension. And there are major question marks around the wide receiver, too, who the Commanders brought in for Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. Brandon Graham saying this to, who was it? Jockey Rondo or whatever his name is on YouTube. He said, on the Commanders acquiring Deebo Samuel, I wouldn't worry about him. He's got to get in shape first. This Eagles-Commanders rivalry is going to be spicy this year. But it's spicier and more competitive with the happy Terry McLaurin. Janky Rondo, I think is what his name is. Hopefully I got it right one of those times. But Brandon Graham said that to him. And with McLaurin, by the way, with that contract, not going to be cheap. You can screenshot this if you want, but this is a look at the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL per year. And you look at some of the players who McLaurin has been competing against for bragging rights, statistics, and a new contract on this list. He completely has a point with 5 straight years of over 1,000 yards to be at least a $30 million per year man. A lot more to get to here on the show, but first, let me pause and give you a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button right here on Philadelphia Eagles Now and lock us in for the best Eagles coverage every single day, year-round on YouTube, thanks to us. Yours truly, Chase Sr., right here on Eagles Now. In the month of June, Eagles Now gained 1,200 subscribers right on the dot. Subs so far in July, we just hit the halfway point. It's July 16th. Little bit behind pace, but we can easily catch up right now. 470 is that number so far this month. And what you get daily Eagles content, and here at Chat Sports, we're a powerhouse network on YouTube. Eagles Now, the channel, has been number 1 in subs gain over the last 365 days. Let's continue to set the standard here at the company. Topic number 2, Howie Roseman, Eagles general manager, looks like a genius again. Some of these big money contracts that have happened across the NFL impact Philadelphia. They make the Eagles look good for how they negotiate and finalize these extensions and taking care of their homegrown players. And obviously some of these deals that are very eye-popping have to do with salary cap inflation. But that's part of what makes Howie a genius, is that he accounts for salary cap inflation, meaning the salary cap going up year over year because business is booming in the NFL, and he applies that thought process to how he constructs these contracts. For instance, Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets got a bag, 4 years, $130 million, $90 million in guaranteed money, and he gets $32.5 million average annual value. The Eagles could have waited to pay Devontae Smith instead of doing it last offseason. They could have waited to do it this offseason. And if they would have done that, they would have cost themselves millions and millions of dollars because salaries for wide receivers are exploding, as evidenced by Garrett Wilson, who Devontae Smith is better than. You have Jamar Chase making $40.25. Justin Jefferson at 35, CD Lamb 34, DK Metcalf just got a new deal. He's at 33. Garrett Wilson at 32.5. That bumps A.J. Brown outside of the top 5 in AAV at $32 million, followed by Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins. What do you see on that list? A.J. Brown goes down to number 6, no longer a top 5 wide receiver in the game. He's better than Garrett Wilson. Who do you not see on that list? Devontae Smith, who is also better than Garrett Wilson. The Jets are paying more money for a lesser player, and Howie Roseman knew by having foresight and planning ahead that the wide receiver market was due to take off, and so he paid A.J. Brown for the second time in 3 years, and he gave Devontae Smith the contract well before this wave. And both Brown and Smitty, better players, and they're under much better contracts for Philadelphia. That's how these new money deals impact the Eagles. And with Devontae Smith, What a running mate to A.J. Brown. What a start to his career he's been off to. 2 1,000-yard seasons in 4 years. But keep in mind that this Eagles team has been a very run-heavy team. And so Smitty's great production, despite the lack of targets and the Eagles throwing it, I think makes his production even more impressive because he's taking advantage and maximizing his opportunities. What a pick, taking the former Heisman Trophy winner in the 2021 NFL Draft out of Alabama. You got him in 2021. Then Howie Roseman got A.J. Brown in 2022. Now they've formed to be the best wide receiver duo in franchise history and the best wide receiver duo in the NFL currently. A.J. last year missed some time. Still had 67 catches, more than 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. 2023, more than 100 catches, almost 1,500 yards, 7 touchdowns. 2022, 88 grabs, 1,500 catches, 11 touchdowns. So in 2 of his 3 years, and for Smith in his entire career, you don't see these gaudy 100-catch, 100-target seasons like you see for C.D. Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase, which, again, is why it's so impressive that Brown and Smitty have been able to do what they've been able to do. And for A.J., I think he's the best wide receiver in franchise history and All-Pro in every year that he's been with the Eagles. As for Garrett Wilson, I'm not going to lie to you. He's had some awful quarterback play, bad offensive coordinators. He has still put up great production. If you paired him with a better offensive mind and a better quarterback, I think that his numbers would be dramatically better. Yet, despite that, he's still gone over 1,000 yards his first 3 years in the NFL since getting drafted out of Ohio State. But I just think that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are better players, and they're not dropping it as much as Wilson is. 14 drops the last 2 years, 5 in 2022. In 3 years, he has 19 drops. Really good production, but not sure-handed. I also think that Smitty and A.J. are better after the catch, better with contested catches, and just better overall players. Now, speaking of A.J., he was ranked number 5 in ESPN's wide receiver rankings. I do have some notable takeaways from what ESPN said. These rankings, of course, based upon the opinions of NFL scouts, coaches, and executives. Here was the write-up on A.J. coming in at number 5. It's odd to see a top 5 receiver here, tied for 43rd in league-wide targets last year. 97, goes back to the point I made earlier about maximizing those ops. But those numbers for Brown were more of a product of the run-heavy Eagles offense and didn't affect his high-end ability. Philly was 16-1 while averaging 31.5 points per game with Brown in the lineup last year. Without Brown, the team went 2-2 while averaging 18 points per game. Those numbers include Philadelphia's playoff run. Talk about an impact at wide receiver. We see you, number 11. He's still awesome, a veteran AFC scout said. He comes up big when you need him. He's still incredibly strong and fast enough. A nightmare to tackle. Maybe it's had slower than he was, but that's slight. That observation is one that I think we need to keep track of, with A.J. being 28, physical wide receiver, who's a bigger guy. How does he age? How is that speed impacted? I still think he's plenty fast. He gets separation. He can win with physicality on 50-50 balls, but also remember how he outran Jair Alexander last year? I don't really think the speed is that much of a problem. Furthermore, though, Brown averaged 3.3 yards per route in 2024, second highest among wideouts with a minimum of 75 targets. He's been so good that Eagles GM Howie Roseman has paid him top-end receiver money on 2 occasions in 3 years. For so long, the Eagles really struggled to draft, develop, and find wide receivers. What a blessing for those of us who love offensive football that Jalen Hurts has A.J. and Smitty to throw to. As for Sauce Gardner, Jets have been busy this week spending. He is now the highest-paid cornerback in the NFL. 4 years, $120.4 million. He gets $30.1 million in APY. So you look at that list of the highest-paid corners in the NFL, the Eagles do not have a player close to cracking this list. They probably will soon, though. More on that in a moment. Sauce overtaking Derek Stingley, both members of that draft class. He's at 30 and a dime. Stingley got paid earlier this offseason. He's at 30 even. Some of these contracts are nuts. J.C. Horn, good player, not great, 25 per year. Jalen Ramsey, older, 24. Pat Surtain, the Broncos, I think, signed him last offseason. They made a Howie Roseman type of decision there. They saved a lot of money paying him early. You have A.J. Terrell, Denzel Ward, Marshawn Lattimore, Marlon Humphrey, and Trayvon Diggs rounding out that list. This is another position where with the salary cap continuing to go up, salary cap inflation, it has skyrocketed as far as value goes. I mean, you're seeing players like Mooney Ward get $20 million per year. He was an all-pro 2 years ago for the San Francisco 49ers, but him and Carlton Davis, they're all getting in that neighborhood of $20 million. So as we look ahead for Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, it's fantastic right now that they're going into year 2. For Quinyon, he has 3 more years of team control left before the Eagles can exercise his 5th-year option for an additional year. That's great. And so the Eagles have some wiggle room and some time before they need to make a decision on whether or not to pay Quinyon. We'll see how he continues to play. I think he's a blossoming star, as we saw last year. With Cooper DeJean, you don't have that extra year with the 5th-year option because he was a second-round pick. So the Eagles going to have to act here in the next couple of years on paying or thinking about paying both Coop and Quinyon, 2 pillars for this Eagles defense, and it's not going to be cheap. We just showed you the numbers. Cornerbacks are getting paid top dollar, premium price tags. With DeJean, might be a little bit cheaper because he's an inside guy if he stays on the inside, but that's a decision that Howie Roseman's going to have to grapple with because perhaps the Eagles might have to pay 2 corners big-time money at the same time. Now, right now, the Eagles are in a good spot to absorb that, and they have some time to make those decisions, and they've built this defense in a way where right now they're not spending a lot of coin. That's been part of the offseason strategy for Howie Roseman. Let's not retain these players or overpay for players because we want to take care of our own in the future. Again, what did I say earlier? Howie Roseman's always planning ahead. And so right now, the Eagles have the 30th highest spending defense in the NFL, meaning they're extremely cheap at just $85.82 million. Last year, 27th highest paid defense. They're 31st along the defensive line, 30th at linebacker, 4th at corner. Howie is willing to invest there and in the defensive line. And then safety, 31st among the 32 teams. Just some information for you to be mindful of here as we look into the future. A lot more to get to here on the show, man. We're just running through everything. But give me a follow on X and Instagram. I'm always talking Eagles here on YouTube. I'm always talking about the Birds because I'm addicted to this grind on X and IG at Chase_Senior. Major platforms there, reaching millions of people every single month with additional content. Another big money contract. Trey Smith, right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, also got paid. He was the only player that a team placed a franchise tag on. In this case, obviously, Kansas City put that franchise tag on Trey Smith. Took a little while to work out a deal, but they are in agreement and have finalized a 4-year extension for one of the top interior offensive linemen in the game, worth $94 million, $70 million of guaranteed money, $23.5 million per year is the average annual value. That is number 1 among all guards in football. We're talking right guard and left guard. And frankly, I think Landon Dickerson is a better player. And again, with Landon Dickerson, Howie Roseman paid him early. You sense a theme? Howie's done it again. Now, the Eagles are very familiar with Trey Smith. We know that the Eagles didn't blitz once, and they had Patrick Mahomes under siege all throughout Super Bowl 59. That defensive line ate up. And there was a play where Trey Smith got eaten up as far as the utter domination that we saw from this Eagles defensive line. I said earlier the Eagles know Trey Smith very well. Let's run through the tape. You see Trey Smith right here, circled in red. He is the right guard as the Chiefs are just past midfield. Patrick Mahomes in the shotgun, flanked to his right is Isaiah Pacheco. You have Travis Kelce right here, lined up in the slot. And you'll see Trey Smith, as we roll the tape, is on a pull block. So he's going to pull from right to left. And you see Trey Smith circled here in red. But then you see Nolan Smith setting the edge, circled in green. Patrick Mahomes, here he is on a play action. He's going to fake the handoff to Isaiah Pacheco on the little whirl out. And this play gets blown up. Why? Because Nolan Smith absolutely obliterates Trey right here. And that's what we call a high-speed collision. I wrote this out. So that's how Nolan Smith thinks of Trey Smith. That's what Nolan Smith did against Trey Smith in the Super Bowl. That's the highest-paid guard in football. And the Eagles put the beat down, beating the brakes off the Kansas City Chiefs. Glorious play right here to blow up this play. And as I'm looking at it right now, I think this is the motion man. And then Isaiah Pacheco ended up getting this carry right here as I just correct my mistake. And this play, again, blown up because Nolan Smith sets the edge. When you hear the term setting the edge, that's setting the edge. And this is a creative play call here from Andy Reid. Getting Trey on that pull block because he tries to come backside with the crackback here. Nolan Smith says, I'm not having any of that. Elite. Nolan Smith might be a smaller player, but we've really started to find out he plays a lot bigger than his size, much more physical, and better against the run than a player like Hassan Reddick. Similar build. Has the twitch and the pass rush ability of Hassan Reddick. But this type of play style right here, that is good in any weather against any team as compared to having a player like Reddick who's more of that speed pass rusher. Speaking of pass rushers, I'm not going to disrespect Micah Parsons and only call him a speed guy because he's not that. He also brings physicality to the table. He can also drop back in coverage because he did it at Penn State. He's comfortable doing it with Dallas. That's why his sack numbers have been so impressive because he does it all. As we know, Micah, the Harrisburg native, Penn State product, he's contract extension eligible. And he has no concerns, no worries about getting compensated. He's been pretty good about this. He hasn't taken to social media to put up cryptic posts. He hasn't really caused or stirred a lot of drama. Sometimes that's hard for him to do because he's a very outspoken guy, but on that front, I do respect it. I think when you make contract extensions messy, it just takes the focus away from football. But anyway, here's what Parsons said about getting a new deal. I'm just going to get mine no matter what. You know what I mean? Like the markets change every year. Their salary cap went up like another 18% this year. So if you want to know contracts, all the contracts are based off of percentage. Each player, a high-paid player, takes a percentage of the salary cap. So it's not really the number. It goes off by the cap. Now, I think that Howie Roseman might have different opinions about that, obviously more nuanced. That's his job as the GM. It's not Micah Parsons' job to be salary cap savvy. But look, there's no doubt that Micah Parsons is going to get paid. And I'm going to make this prediction here on July 16th. I think that Micah Parsons becomes the highest paid defender and highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL once the Dallas Cowboys eventually decide to give him that bag. Because you look at the highest paid edge rushers per year, Myles Garrett earlier this offseason became the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the league at $40 million. Micah Parsons has been not more productive, but his production has been similar to Garrett, and he's a younger player than Myles Garrett. So I expect that with this position really getting reset financially, and that's happened on several occasions the last few years, really snowballed when Nick Bosa signed for $34 million per year heading into 2023. I predict that Parsons resets it again, and he overtakes Myles Garrett as the highest paid edge rusher, non-quarterback, and defensive player in the history of this game. Now, obviously, how this impacts the Eagles, it hurts the Cowboys salary cap-wise. They gave Dak $60 million per year last offseason. They gave C.D. Lamb, $33-34 million per year. Now they're going to pay Micah Parsons $40 million per year. That's a lot of cap tied up to just those three players on a team that's not that deep. The Eagles are paying a lot of money, but they're also deep because they've had better drafts than the Dallas Cowboys. And then furthermore, Eagles face one of the best defenders in the game twice a year. You look at what Parsons has done, in his career so far. The sack numbers waned a little bit last year in 2024, but that defense wasn't great. He didn't have a lot of help, but he still had 12 TFLs, 12 sacks. The year before that, 18 TFLs, 14 sacks. 2022, 13 TFLs, 13 and a half sacks. And his rookie year, burst onto the scene. 20 TFLs, 13 sacks. He has Defensive Player of the Year ability year in and year out. And again, that sack production, pretty impressive because he's dropping back in coverage more often than a lot of other pass rushers who just pin their ears back to get after the quarterback. Thank you so much for watching Eagles Now. I know it was a long one, but there was so much to hit, and I outlined it clearly in the show. All of this, in a way, impacts the Birds.